I think my spouse is lying to me, but I don't have proof. What should I do?
Brannon, how's it going, man?
It's going really good, actually. I yeah, I want to ask you something. I had something on my mind.
Okay.
Um I'm
I'm
gonna
always
bring
worried. I'm always worried when you bring that up that way.
I'm gonna bring up a couple words and I just want to see what comes up for you.
Okay.
So
Okay. This is
um
dangerous.
yeah. So well, first word is pero.
I love Pharaoh, Brannon.
You do? I didn't know
Oh,
that.
I love it, man. In fact, it's been like a conflict in my marriage because I like it, and my wife doesn't think I should like it.
Have you ever had Creo brew?
No,
Oh,
unfair.
dude, it's like Pero on steroids. It's you would love it.
Okay. Yeah.
Go to Harmon's. They sell it there. This episode is sponsored by Creo Brew. Go to Harmon's and buy it.
by by Pero. It's like a child. That's a childhood memory right there, Brandon. Like,
Yeah,
we I have images now. Like what came to my mind, Brandon, is images of dad. Like we were kids, like probably, 10 or 11 years old, maybe 8 or 9. And dad would come out in the morning for breakfast and he'd be in this like old bathrobe that he used to have. It was
yeah,
like had
yeah.
holes in it and stuff. And he would
That mice had literally like chewed through.
yeah. And then he would pull out he'd pull out the canister of Pero and like mix up a hot cup of Pero and like drink it for breakfast. And we sit there and watch and be like, what is that? Like, is that like hot chocolate? And like it's basically just like a coffee substitute.
You know what's odd? This is odd, but dad was a huge Pero guy,
He
right?
loved it, man.
But grandpa was more of a Postum guy.
Oh, yeah. Postum and Pero, they're basically the same thing.
Basically the same thing, but why was dad a Pero guy and grandpa
Yeah,
was a Postum guy? That's
why did he
grand,
break tradition?
grandpa with his Postum and his big chunk of shredded wheat.
Shredded wheat without the sugar on it, just like straight
Yeah,
shredded wheat.
just straight fiber, just straight shredded
Um,
wheat with his Postum.
you're bringing back some memories from childhood, Brandon.
Yeah, see, I knew it. You know.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
funny. I think
yeah.
I actually do have some Pero at home right now, and once in a while I bust it out just for old time's
Well,
sake.
it's your birthday next month. I mean, I'll tell you now. I'm gonna get you the sampler of Creo Brew that you can get.
Okay. Can't
It's
wait to try,
amazing.
can't wait to try it, man.
Yeah. Um. Well. How do we shift from that?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, let's get into the question now. Which was about like, hey, something is off in our relationship. Basically, I feel like my spouse is lying to me, but I don't have any proof. How many times have you heard that before, Brannon?
oh my goodness. Yeah. I mean, that's what we do, and we've seen it a gazillion times. I think we should back up a little bit and just maybe talk about what are the what are the things or the signs that you are being lied to, because your gut might just be picking it up and just sensing it, and so you can feel it in the air, but you can't pinpoint it. And so I think it's helpful to know that you're not crazy and that you are seeing some signs, and that your intuition is picking up on some things. So Tyler, what are some signs that you're being lied to?
Yeah. Well, even maybe before that, Brandon, I'm going to back up one step further a little bit and just say that I think it's for people listening, this is a really, really normal phenomena. And what a lot of times happens is that the person who feels like there's dishonesty going on in the relationship, they start to feel crazy because they can't find the tangible proof. And then they spend a ton of their time trying to chase down the tangible proof, and it makes them feel crazier. All the while, it doesn't actually yield any results a lot of the time.
Yeah,
So,
they get in this kind of spinning anxiety. I gotta find proof something's off. I don't know what I don't know. Yeah.
yeah, and it can be really unsettling, and you can kind of feel the way that it gets described to me a lot is like in the relationship, I feel like the ground is shaking underneath my feet, but I don't know why. Like I don't
Yeah.
know, I can't see the earthquake, but there's something happening and things don't quite feel safe and secure in the relationship. There seems to be like a pattern of communication that has like a thread of energy to it that doesn't quite feel authentic. And that causes the unsettled feeling to come up, even though there's not like, oh, I just found this on their phone or I just heard them talking to this person or whatever else. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so kind of back to your original question, Brandon, it's like a lot of times people start to feel based off of an energy between the partnership, but then also other kinds of behaviors sometimes get attached to the fact that there's some lying and some dishonesty that's going on there.
Yep.
So those other behaviors would include things like other pieces of dishonesty in other parts of the relationship, even if they don't seem like a big deal. Like um, for some reason, just not quite being fully honest about where I'm at on my way home from work, where I could be 3 miles away in a different spot, but I somehow say I'm three miles
So little
closer.
lies, little
Little
white
tiny,
lies,
little
like
tiny white lies, or you hear them, lie to a friend on the phone about why they can't go to some function, and they can just nonchalantly pass that off with as a lie, thinking that it's no big deal, which it probably isn't in that moment, but that's a pattern that's kind of established. Um, Defensiveness. There are a lot of times defensiveness is a sign that there might be something else underneath the surface because I'm trying to back you off every time you get close.
so explain some examples of that
It would be
because there's different forms of defensiveness.
Yeah, so it would be the kind of thing where, maybe my wife comes to me and she says, "Hey Tyler, something feels really off right now in our relationship." And I kind of get all huffy and be like, "Well, what's wrong? I'm doing everything I can to be a good husband, like this and that and the other." Like, that would could be one form of defensiveness, or another way, this is pure gaslighting, is that I might actually turn it back onto her and say, "Oh, well, sounds like you got something to work on in our relationship. Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe you should go get some counseling and figure out what's going on for you right now." Right.
Yeah.
All the while I'm holding on to the secrets, but I'd rather just have you continue to think that you're the one who's got the problem, who's crazy, rather than taking ownership for it because I'm too afraid to bring it into the light.
Right. I mean, when you bring up defensiveness, Tyler, the reality is everything that we talk about when in terms of signs that they're not safe and that they're lying is defensiveness. Like little white lies is they're defending against a reality. Um, getting all huffy or turning the tables, or shutting down or getting all compliant and being really, really nice. Like all of that is defending against a reality that they don't want you to see. And so if they can get you to not see that reality, they don't have to deal with that reality. And for you, and you talk about getting gaslit, which that buzzword has taken off and is almost overused like crazy, but that's another topic. Um, but you say it's kind of the energy of unsettling in the relationship. We sometimes call it crazy making. You just feel like you don't know what you don't know. You feel like you don't know them, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then you start to turn it on yourself and say, "Am I crazy? Am I second guessing myself? What's wrong with me?" Um, because yeah, or you'll start spinning looking for proof. Tyler, I'm sure you had this happen a lot, but when a partner finds out what the lie is, they get crushed. It's extremely hard. But there's this also this other side of them that's somewhat relieved
Yeah.
because it's like, oh, well, it all makes sense now.
Oh, I'm not crazy. It's almost like it's weird because it's a painful, traumatizing thing, but it's almost like a puzzle piece snaps into place where it's like, oh, okay. Like
Uh,
my gut
yeah,
feeling was telling me something and I didn't know how to handle it, but my gut was actually, on some level, my gut was right.
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 Yeah, right. You can
Yeah.
trust yourself. You're not off. Oh my gosh, this all makes sense. And we've seen people hold these lies and gaslight and defend for years and years and years. And um it's interesting, Tyler. Somebody who is a liar, who's lying a lot, um they have a really hard time with vulnerable things. So things like empathy, accountability, um and that's actually a good thing. And hear me out here. It's actually a good thing that they suck at those things. And the reason, because think about it, if they stay, and sometimes this happens, if they stay really good at intimacy, really good at empathy, really good at accountability, and oh, by the way, I have this big secret over here that I'm continuing to do, it's really confusing and crushing for the partner because it's like, how can that be? Like, I, and most people are not good at that. Most people cannot do both at the same time. Their shame won't let them,
The
right?
shame kind of gets in the way. Well, shame unravels the ability to have empathy.
Right. And so if if they can keep being empathetic and connected but still have secrets, that does almost irreparable damage to the relationship. Because for the partner, it's like, I never know when I can trust you, because before you felt trustworthy, you were hurting me, right? And so luckily, usually what you just said is true. If I have a lot of shame, I can't be empathetic. I usually have a lot of shame when I'm keeping a lot of secrets. I'm defending a lot. And so therefore, you know that like you're not connected to me because I'm hiding things,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. Would it be all right, Brandon, if maybe I just gave, and this doesn't have to be an exhaustive list, but maybe a few kinds of ways that that defensiveness comes through, or that denial or that hiding comes through, even when you can't put your finger on it? And then
Mm-hmm.
maybe later on, we can get into like, well, what do you do about it, even if you don't have the proof?
Yeah.
Because that was the question. So,
Yeah.
so here's a couple of other things, and we don't have to spend a ton of time on these, but one way that you'll start to feel something is off is there's a tactic that the person who's being dishonest will use called distraction. And distraction will be the kind of thing where, maybe I'm coming home for the day, and something happened in my day that I don't want to talk about with my partner. And right when I walk in the door, my partner's like, "Hey, how was your day? Tell me all about your day." And I quickly move it to, "My day was great. What about yours? Tell me all about yours. What about this? What about that? What about this? What about this?" And I'm gonna put you off the scent by distracting onto something else. Or, maybe we need to have a discussion about the fact that I was late getting home from work, but instead I'm gonna hurry and shift it over to something the kids did that day, or something that went on with my friends that I'm mad about, or something else, to
Or
avoid having that conversation.
like, oh, hey, yeah, hey, do you want some Paro? it,
Yeah, you want
it
a
can
cup of
really
Paro?
it can really be anything, huh?
Yeah,
It's like any little tiny thing to take you off the scent, that's distraction. And some people are really good at it. Like, and they
yeah.
also know your little buttons. It's like that neighbor that drives you nuts. It's like, hey, where were you after work? Oh, did you see the neighbor like, doing that thing in their yard? Like, what?
Yeah, like, well, like,
And
hurry and put the focus somewhere else.
and
Like,
she or he is like, yeah, go that neighbor.
and then you're like, oh, thank goodness,
Yeah,
we don't
thank
have to have
goodness
that conversation.
thank goodness the neighbor was sunbathing in the front yard. It's
Uh,
like, thank goodness today.
I got the person off the scent of whatever my vulnerability was, right?
Yeah.
So that's one. Another one is actually the use of hopelessness. My partner may come to me and want to have a discussion about something, and instead of like me just kind of hanging in there and having that conversation and being honest, I hurry and drop into like, woe is me, I'm no good, like I can't do anything right, like, and now what I'm doing is getting you to caretake me instead of actually have the discussion that needs to be had.
Yeah.
So
This one gets really insidious and dangerous at times. It's like somebody who's got some things they need to get into the light, even to the point of like, well, and so they get confronted and they're like, well, I'm suicidal, or I'm this. And so now it's like, now I have to take care of you. But what we're not addressing is the actual underneath the actual
issue.
things. And so as your partner, it's just safety time and I'm just making sure that you're okay. And the partner's like, yeah, like we're definitely not getting down to things. We're so far from that because of this
Yeah.
hopelessness.
Yep. Here's another one, and this is a classic one for someone who prides themselves in being an honest person. Like they'll talk about how honest they are and how much they value integrity. They love this one because they can justify it. It's called omitting, where, well, you didn't ask the exact question, so I didn't actually tell you, but I didn't lie to you,
Yeah.
right? So it's like all of this stuff is going on, but because you didn't ask it and I didn't say it, I'm being honest. But what
I,
I'm really doing is I'm leaving out the pertinent details that actually would really matter to you.
I would almost say, Tyler, that there are overall, there are more lies that are never said, like things that are never said, than lies that are said.
Mhm.
Right? Do you understand what I mean?
100%. There's more dishonesty by omission than there is by commission.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I mean, and I'm sure we've done it. I've done it in my life. It's like,
Oh, yeah.
well,
That
I'll
was one
just
of my
leave,
favorites.
I'll just leave that one out, like that little thing. Like, oh, I didn't have to lie.
Yeah.
And I think the part that's a lie is you're lying to yourself, knowing that that's something that the other person probably has a right to hear or needs to hear for their own safety in their own life. And you're like, nope, I'm not. I'm gonna hold that one, and you're lying to yourself that that's okay.
Yeah. And maybe you're even lying to yourself saying you're doing them a favor when in
Yeah,
reality they
really
really need to know
justifying it.
that information. Yeah.
Yeah,
Another one, blaming, flipping it back around and blaming the other person is a way to be dishonest and protect a lie.
I've heard.
Comparing.
Can I just with
Yeah.
blaming? I've heard it where it's like that, like they will start a fight with their spouse. They will then go out and do something
Act out in some way.
horrible. Yeah, come back and they'll kind of own it. Like, well, yeah, but I did it because you suck. I did it because of you,
Yeah.
and that's just it, that. So yeah, they might be owning that they did it, but they're not owning that they did it.
Yeah. It's like a dime a dozen that this happens. This happened in my office yesterday. It happens frequently in my office. A lady confronted her husband about his perpetual pornography use in my office yesterday. And he admitted to the perpetual pornography use, but then he wanted to explain to her that the reason he had to do it was because she wasn't emotionally available to him and he had to figure out how to fill that void.
Yeah,
Right.
there you go.
Like, yeah.
That's
So
it.
somehow it's like saying, I'm sorry, not sorry.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
you
I'm
know, like,
sorry, it's your fault.
I'm sorry, it's your fault. And because you did it then that means I had to do this.
Yeah.
Like, it is your fault. So there's like that's blaming. And that's dishonest. It doesn't take accountability. A couple others, Brandon, real quick. Comparing. A way to stay dishonest is to compare whatever you're going through to somebody else and then put the focus on the comparison instead.
Hmm.
So, well, it's your partner approaches you like, "Hey, you got a problem with being like late getting home from work every night, and that causes me to feel a little bit unstable, and I'm wondering where you're at or what you're doing." Well, it could be worse. I could be going to like, like so and so down the street or so and so in my group does this or this or this.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, yeah, but you're still not being honest. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
It's like if I scroll for an hour a day and it's like, unhealthy or whatever, I'm scrolling but I'm like, oh, this family member that they're scrolling like 3 hours a day. Like they're so like I really don't have that big a problem. I have nothing to own here because look at them. Like it could be them. I'm only drinking 5 beers a day and my buddy drinks 12.
he does a 12
So
pack.
so like hey, I can drink five. What's
Yeah,
wrong with that?
exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yep. Maybe two more, Brannon, here. The next one is compliance. This is my least favorite one because it twists me up inside. I'm going to go through the motions of doing what I think you want me to do, but I'm actually not doing it with my heart engaged in it.
It's to get you
So
off my back.
it's to get you off my back so that I can still have this secret underneath the surface, but it looks like I'm doing everything right. And then of course things blow up later on and it doesn't work really well. but it makes someone else feel crazy too. It's its own form of gaslighting.
Here's my you. This is my least favorite one. I can't stand it. I've seen it for years. It's so manipulative. This is Mr. Nice Guy to a T. Um, and it's so like I am good and I'm so good that you should trust me, even though my intention is not to actually be honest and
And I'm not
vulnerable and
trustworthy.
me, and I'm not trustworthy. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
but it's really hard to confront. So partners a lot of times get feedback from other people of like, what's your problem with them? How
Yeah.
come
Like, man, they're
like
such a good person.
why do you have a problem? They're so good. Like therapists will fall for it often where it's like, well, that one partner's so great. Like, and they're sitting over there with a big, you know, grin, like, yeah, you see, I'm pulling this off. Like, look, they think I'm awesome. And and yeah, therapists will fall for it, family members will fall for it. Spouses are left feeling crazy because they're like, well, I should trust them, I guess, but actually they're not trustworthy.
Yeah. Um, okay, I said one more, but two more, Brown. And the next one is intellectualizing, which in essence, what intellectualizing is doing is this taking knowledge that could be used for good and using it as a weapon to protect yourself and stay stuck. So coming to therapy and like learning a principle, let's say you learn about attachment theory, and then your partner starts to approach you because they're stressed out and worried about whether or not you're being honest about something, and you turn around and be like, "Yeah, well, in therapy we learned that you have an anxious attachment, so that's your issue."
Yeah, yeah,
Like, so they weaponize the actual work that you're trying to do from the things you're learning in therapy or the books you're reading or whatever, and that becomes a weapon.
yeah. You can see
Uh,
this like Jody does it a lot. Not to bring her up again, but she was a pro at that where she used big words. She would put words in the mouths of the wives so that they could justify all kinds of behaviors, speak down to their partners, and like really be like, see, you're to blame. um I'm smart. I have it figured out. And here's all the reasons why. And Jody would use those big words to try to get people to do that. And it works. It works to manipulate. Um, but it doesn't work to actually solve any problems.
no, and it allows for dishonesty to stay in place.
Yep.
And then the last one, Brannon, is minimizing. And minimizing is making things small or seem insignificant so that you don't have to take ownership for them. And that's something that a lot of partners who feel like they're being lied to, this is one that's very, very common. You start to pick up on that stuff. Like, well, it's not really not that big of a deal that blank, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
It's not a big deal. It's just
it's just,
or only
I'm
it was
only, it's
only
just, it's not that big of a deal.
right. Yeah. And
I'm not really hurting anyone.
Tyler, when we do full disclosures, you start to work through them, and you can see all these forms of denial and lying and manipulation. But it's really apparent with the minimizing. Like you'll be listening, and it's like, well, I did this one thing, but I didn't. It was only that, or and so it's like the disclosure is really quick of what the thing was, and then the minimization around it is like long. It's like, it's like, well, but it was only this and that and this and it's like, no, just stop with this was it. This is it.
Yeah.
This is what happened. Um, and so yeah, minimizing things,
Trying to
making
like
them
soften the blow, but it actually makes it feel worse.
it makes it feel worse that lying is the thing that actually causes the bigger problems.
Yeah.
Um, so, all right, Tyler. So, what do you do if all these things you just went through, all these forms of denial, all these forms of manipulation, lying, if you have a partner who's a pro at this, really good at this, and you're kind of spinning, thinking, okay, like, what do I do now? Because I don't have proof that they're lying, but they sure act like a liar. What do you
Yeah.
do?
Yeah. One thing that I recommend to people who, especially if there's already been like a big breach of trust somewhere, and it's like it's already unstable. Um, a lot of times I tell people to trust their gut and set their boundaries accordingly and then um, check it out later.
Mm.
Because a lot of times people almost lose trust in themselves when they can't put their finger on the tangible thing that the lie that's happening, and they feel like they have to have the proof before they set the boundary that they need, and and then it actually causes them to have less confidence in themselves and in their ability to make decisions. And so what I encourage people to do is go off of what your gut is, set the boundary that you feel like you need to in order to maintain your groundedness and your safety and security emotionally, and then let the dust settle. And and you can set the boundary off of all of these other things that I just mentioned. These are like secondary things that you pick up on: the minimizing, the rationalizing, the intellectualizing.
Well, well,
You could,
Tyler,
yeah,
I would like the boundary, and we could really get in this discussion. The boundary has nothing to do with the other person. Like it really doesn't.
right.
They might be doing all of those things. So you don't want to set a boundary of like, you can't minimize things, you can't blame. You want to set a boundary of, I'm not feeling safe and this is what I need from me. Right. And they might be like, whoa, what did I do? And you don't have to say anything like, I'm just feeling unsafe. And so this is what I'm gonna need.
And
Right.
this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I want to come back to, you just said something, Tyler, that is really good, really profound. Um, I forget how you said it. Set the boundary and let the dust settle first, right?
Hmm.
Now, to somebody who doesn't trust themselves, they have a really hard time doing that,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Yeah. There,
Yeah.
and because there isn't something tangible, it's almost like an act of faith to do that. Like,
That's how it feels.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's like really hard to say, look, I'm feeling this and I need this, and this is what's in my control for me. I'm going to go forth and do this. When you've been gaslit and you're crazy making and you're spinning and wondering if you're the problem and all this, it's really difficult to do what Tyler said. And yet there's so much wisdom in what Tyler said, because what you're practicing, you're learning how to show up authentic yourself. You're learning how to show up honest yourself, and you're learning how to take care of yourself first and foremost, which is actually good for the relationship. That's a loving thing to do,
A
right?
100%. 100%. And it's the loving thing to do for yourself. And it does offer something to the relationship. I'll give you an example of this. All right, Brandon, personal example. This has happened multiple times since I started my own journey with this. There were times when my wife would come to me and she'd say, in essence, man, something feels off right now. I don't know what it is, but something feels off. Have you done something? And I honestly hadn't gone and acted out or done anything wrong in my mind. So I'd tell her like, no, I haven't done anything. Like I haven't acted out. I haven't done this. I'm not lying to you about stuff. And then she would go, oh, it still doesn't feel right. Like I'm going to take some space. And she'd sometimes go to dinner with a friend. Sometimes she'd leave for the night. Sometimes she'd go for a drive. And in that space that she took for herself, because she just didn't quite feel right, that gap was a gift to me, because then I'd go into myself and be like, man, what would possibly be kicking off for her to make her feel this way right now? Because I haven't acted out. I haven't been lying to her and being dishonest, but then I'd go into myself and oftentimes I'd find like, oh man, I've been not telling her about this thing that's been going on the side with a like a potential like business deal, or oh man, I've been really stressed with work and my stress is probably trickling into like she's feeling that from me. And then when she'd come back, I'd be able to come to her and say, "Hey, I'm not sure if this is the what's happening or not, but these are the things that came to my mind. I wonder if some of this is what you're feeling from me." And that was, then she didn't feel crazy. Then she'd be like, okay, so maybe there was something. Maybe it wasn't that Tyler acted out, but there was something that I was picking up on that felt off. Right.
Right.
And it gave me the opportunity to then be introspective. And that's something that I haven't been in the past, is very self introspective and be able to identify my own thoughts, emotions, And so her boundaries for herself were a natural gift to me. And then my ability to kind of go into myself and then bring it back to her was also a chance to then have some kind of communication that was positive and able to build trust.
Yeah, that space that you take, if you're able to reflect, you know, and it's not always okay. I have to like rack my brain to figure out something that I've done wrong. Sometimes it's I need to just pump the brakes and maybe practice a little compassion for her because she's got this test coming up at school. She's really stressed out and she's projecting those emotions over on me. And I want to be patient and I want to be kind. And you know what? Like she's kind of like pointing it toward me, but that's okay. I can be boundaried with that. Um, it might be that. It might be you have this business deal that you're doing and you're being shady and her intuition is absolutely picking up on you being a dishonest person, right? But the point is for her to be able to stop and say, I don't know what is. I don't know if this is my stress from school. I don't know if this is you being a shady person, but I do know this. I'm not going to smile and pretend like everything's okay, have sex with you tonight. And like, I'm not going to be there right now with you because that's not where I'm at. I need to do my self care. I need to take care of me and have my boundaries first and foremost.
Perfectly said, Brannon.
Um,
So in essence, you're not out anything to follow your gut and be authentic and set the boundary, even if you don't have the proof.
exactly. Let the proof thing go. Let it go. Step into your own boundaries and um, you cannot force anybody to be honest with you. I've seen crazy things, Tyler, where there has been blatant proof, like blatant proof of something, and the person who has cheated or lied or whatever still can't get honest. Still won't
Dude,
get honest. It's like in their
dude.
face.
Dude. Can I tell a story on that one? Like, it just made
Yeah.
me think. This is a long time ago when I was doing drug court. We had had this guy. Like, drug court was really cool because we could take people and kind of move them in and out of different levels of incarceration slash care through the whole thing. And our program prioritized honesty above all else, even above sobriety. And we had this guy, this guy like dead to rights. Like, people in the program had reported being there watching him use, and then he came up dirty twice on his UAs. And so he's just like dead to rights. And the PO is like, hey, dude, you just want to come clean. Like, you're going to court on Thursday. If you come clean with us, we can just do a small sanction, keep you going to treatment, keep you in the program. And the way drug court worked is if you drop out of drug court, you have to go finish your jail or prison sentence. And
Oh,
this guy had
geez.
he had 5 years of prison time over his head.
Oh my gosh.
And it got to be the day before court, and he came into group with me, and I hit him with the whole kitchen sink. I played like that like Liars song by the Spice Girls and talked about trust and honesty and
That
like
sounds like a great therapeutic
yeah,
intervention.
yeah.
The Spice Girls.
I busted out the Spice Girls and had a discussion about like honesty and integrity and the possibility of freedom if you could just be honest. And then I had a personal conversation with him and I was like, dude, like everybody knows, like there's no way around this. All you have to do is go to court tomorrow and say, hey, I messed up, I'm sorry, and you'll be here next week. But if you don't, I am telling you right now, you're going to prison for 5 years. He goes to court the next day and the judge is like, hey, dude, all we need is your honesty. And he's like, I didn't do anything wrong, Judge. I didn't use. Boom, gone. 5 years prison. I'm just like, oh my
Golly.
gosh, like, why couldn't he just get honest? All he needed to
Yeah.
do was just get
Yeah.
honest. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's because the defenses are so ingrained at that point that the biggest thing for them to do is to lie, is to defend. And sometimes the healing starts immediately when you get honest. I don't know how many of my opiate addicts that I worked with, they for some reason loved poppy seed muffins, and they were just eating them
Yeah.
every day that they went to a
Somehow they
drug
have like
test.
4 poppy seed
It's like,
muffins every day
oh, it was
before the
my
drug test.
muffin. It was my muffin.
That always pops
It's
dirty for
like, oh,
opiates.
this is dirty. Like this is oh my muffin. Like, well, maybe stop eating the muffins. You know?
We know it's not the muffins.
Yeah. It's not the muffins. We're not stupid.
Yeah.
Um, but back to the point of for the partner, if you let the proof needing the proof go. Now, sometimes proof is nice
It
because
helps.
it
Yeah.
helps you make decisions on your future in your life. But you're not always gonna get it. And if you don't get the proof, you still have your intuition, you still have your ability to control the things in your life. And um it's okay to seek safety when you're in a relationship with somebody who's doing all the things that Tyler listed. It's okay to back away a little bit, to not stay in an environment where you're being manipulated all the time. It's okay to rely on support from other people who can tell you that you're not crazy, that your gut and your intuition is on, and it's okay that you're feeling what you're feeling, and it's valid that you feel what you feel. So get that support, get that space, practice the serenity prayer and what's in your control for you. Trust your gut and have those healthy boundaries.
Beautifully said, Brannon. Um, Hopefully, this is helpful for some of you who might find yourself in a situation like this. Trust yourself. Thank you for being here with us. We love the community that we have with you. We're grateful for your support of us. And you guys have a great week. Until next time, keep on keeping on.